I'm Dr. Seth Meyers, psychologist, and I'm going to share an insight tip about narcissism and specifically the cause of narcissism. One of the most common questions that I get about narcissistic personality is what's the cause of it? Why does someone become narcissistic? Now, there is a primary theory about this, and it has to do with early experiences that an individual may have when they're very young. And the idea is that when an individual was young, there was a close relationship they had, most likely a caregiver, and something happened in that relationship where the young person felt really small or emotionally wounded in some way. They somehow felt like they were bad and something was wrong with them. Maybe they felt demeaned or dismissed or neglected, that they weren't important and that they didn't really matter. Now, one of the things that I always do when I talk about narcissism is try to help people understand better exactly what the individual who becomes narcissistic may have felt like at the time when they were young. Now, a lot of people will say that they felt shame, that shame is the root of the problem. And I think that shame is a factor in narcissism. But one way that I like to explain it is if you think about something as basic as a car manufacturing plant. And let's imagine that the manufacturing plant produces 500 models of a car each day. Well, someone who had this kind of significant emotional injury early on, they were often made to feel as if the factory made a bad model, that they were bad, something was wrong with them. They were a mutation. They should have been different. They are inherently bad or broken or wrong. And so it makes a lot of sense if when a young person gets hurt in this way and feels like something is really wrong with them, that as a result, they overcompensate and they develop defense mechanisms to try to steal themselves from any feelings of vulnerability. They try to tell themselves that they're strong and that they're powerful, that there's nothing wrong with them at all. So the pendulum really swings the other way. I don't have any flaws, any weaknesses at all. This kind of early experience that a young person has, this kind of emotional injury, a lot of times it's called clinically a narcissistic injury, that there was a wounding of their ego, of their pride, of their sense of being okay and accepted and loved for who they are, that something was really wrong and violated early on so that they didn't feel that they were okay, they were accepted, they were loved, they were good enough. So that's one of the really primary theories about how narcissistic personality develops. On the other hand, not everyone who becomes narcissistic was demeaned or dismissed or neglected or treated in a way that was really hurtful and caused this kind of injury. Actually, an individual can also become narcissistic if, when they were young, they were actually treated the opposite way. They were treated as if they were a king or a queen in their family system. A young person who feels like they actually end up having too much power and too much control in a family system can end up having a distorted sense of their own importance. You know, a young child in a family should understand that each person has a role and that if there is a structure of authority in a family, it is a parental figure, and the parent is responsible to take care of and protect the young children. A lot of times, though, in families, there are dysfunctional dynamics that go on, and sometimes parents may be inclined to give a child too much power, and that actually can cause problems later. The young person can develop this sense of themselves that they are more important than a young child should feel, that they are more important than others in the family system, that their feelings and their beliefs and their thoughts are actually the most important, that they matter more than everyone else. And that's really a problem because, you know, in a family system, Everyone should feel important. Everyone's thoughts and feelings have value. And there really shouldn't be some ranked structure where one person is more important than another. Even in a family, the parent, just because they are in a position of authority and power, they should not be more important. Everyone is equally important. Well, sometimes an individual can develop narcissism because early on they had a really skewed early life where they learned that they are more important than others. And so, of course, later in life, it would make perfect sense if they hold everyone to that understanding where they expect, if you are in a relationship with me, you must understand that I am more important. My needs come first and yours come second to mine. So these are a couple of the causes a lot of times with narcissistic personality. But the truth is that narcissism is a complex personality type, and not everyone develops narcissistic traits in the same way and for exactly the same reasons. There's also the perfectly legitimate question about how much does it matter what the cause of narcissism is, especially for anyone who is in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic. A lot of times, if you have a family member or loved one or someone you work closely with at work who is narcissistic, a lot of times you may be inclined to go on a mission of sorts to try to understand narcissism. You may become a researcher of sorts into it and try to understand it better. Now, there is a value in learning about narcissism because once you do understand narcissism better, you can understand better how to deal with it, how to deal with the narcissistic person in your life. At the same time, there is a limit to how much it makes sense to focus on the cause of narcissism. A, we don't know with 100% certainty what the cause of narcissism is. We can imagine. I can share 20 years of clinical experience with what I have seen, and certainly a lot of other experts in narcissism can share similar information. And yet, the truth is, we don't have video cameras to go back and show the lives day to day of a young person and try to understand exactly why it is that they became the way they did as an adult. It matters to a point to understand the cause of something, but what matters more than the cause is, where do we go from here? What matters most is, what are the narcissistic behaviors that are causing problems today? What are the things that I need to do in order to cope with these behaviors better? What are the ways that I can learn to respond to someone narcissistic in my life? What are the things that I need to do? What are the things that I need to do to practice self care, to heal? We can't go back in time and change the tape. We can't go back and change what has already happened. What matters the most is, what do we do today with narcissism? What do we do today with any narcissistic behaviors that you face? If, by the way, this video has been helpful to you, please feel free to check out my podcast, Insight with Dr. Seth, and feel free to like this video so you can let me know that this was helpful.